Hey guys, so today we are going to discuss how to block other countries from being able to access your server. We're going to do this with the external firewall called FortiGate 60D. Okay, FortiGate is one of the most popular external firewalls out there. Okay, as you can see, I have the graphical user interface open right in front of me, and I've chosen today to start with Russia and China as my examples. As you can see, Russia, I looked them up, and it says the top 10 countries where cyber attacks originate from, and those are China with 41% of all hacks coming from China, and Russia is on the fourth spot with 4.3%. Turkey's on number 3 with 4.7%, and the U.S. is at the number 2 spot with 10%. But we're not going to block the U.S. because this is where we're located, and we need to have access to our websites and stuff like that to run on our server. And Turkey, I will be blocking, just not right now for this example. Today, again, I'm going to be blocking China, and I'm going to be blocking Russia. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you want to do is you want to create the addresses in your system. So you want to click on Policy and Objects on your left, and you want to click on Addresses. Again, this is the GUI, the graphical user interface of the FortiGate system. We are going to be mainly using these two links right here, the one that's called IPv4 Policy, as well as the addresses. Okay, as you can see, when I go to addresses, I already have a lot of countries in here. I've already added all the countries in the world in here. I left out China and Russia just so that I can teach you how to add those manually. I added all of these countries manually. It took me about an hour. Normally, I'd be able to run the script and add them all by running a script on this FortiGate. The thing is that the 60D does not, this particular 60D does not have a, does not allow us to execute a script. So if you click here on the username and go to configuration, usually, right now it says backup and restore. Usually there's one more link there that says, there's one more button there that says run script or execute script. In this case, it's not there because this version does not have it. That's okay. I took the time and I added all the countries manually. And that's because I wanted all the countries in my system. If you're just trying to block a couple of countries, it will just take you a few minutes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a search here for Russia. You're going to notice that there's no results because I did not add Russia. And we're going to basically type in China. You're going to see that there's also no results because I did not add China. So we're going to go ahead and add those. So the way you do it is you click on address. I'm sorry, let's take you back because I kind of clicked on that quickly. The first thing you do is you click on create new right here. Then you click on address. Okay, now we're here. So now we are going to start with, let's start with China. Okay, so now that China's there, under type, you want to click on type. You want to change that from subnet to geography. Okay, once you select geography, you're going to see that there's a drop down menu for country. You're going to click on that, and that's where you find the country of your choice. In this case, it's China. Comments is optional. I usually don't add them here, but you can if you want to. Okay, if you can type in block China if you want to. Okay, so in any case, you create that. Now you're going to see that if I do a search for China, now it shows up. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and create a new policy for Russia because Russia doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to go ahead and say Russia. I'm going to again click on geography, and I'm going to again select the country. In this case, Russia is called the Russian Federation. Right there, Russian Federation. And you can name this anything you want, by the way. It doesn't need to be called Russia. You can call this Russian Federation. Federation. Or give it any other name. I personally, if I do use two words, I like putting a underscore between the two words just so that it makes it easier in case you ever write a script or anything like that that you need to run in your FortiGate on the CLI or anywhere else. it makes it a lot easier. But in my case, I like using one word names, so I'm going to go ahead and just call it Russia. Okay, now that it's called Russia, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then I am going to do a search for Russia in my system, and you're going to see that it's there. Okay, it's there, and China is also there. Okay, so now that they both exist, I'm going to create an IPv4 policy. So you're going to create, you're going to go to IPv4 policy. This is where you set the policies to block or allow anyone into your through your firewall so that they can access your server. Okay. So here, once you're in the IPv4 policy, you're going to click on Create New, because we're going to create a new policy. And once you're on this page, you're going to give it a name. Now, I'm going to call this block countries, and we are going to select our incoming interface and our outgoing interface, and we are going to again, the incoming and outgoing interface, that's actually depending on your machine and what your setup is, as far as what your LAN is and your WAN and everything else that you have set up internet wise, whether you use Wi-Fi or whatever. In my case, these are my settings, so that's what I entered my settings. Okay, so you're gonna have to enter your own, and you'll see that you should have it on there. Okay, okay, so now for source, we are going to select China and we are going to select Russia. Okay, so I selected China. We're going to select Russia. As you can see, they popped up here on the left. Okay, now I can delete them from here. For example, let's go ahead and delete Russia. Okay, and if I click on it again here, it's going to appear. I can also just click on it right here from this list, and it will disappear from there, or it could be added. Okay, but these are the two sources, China and Russia. We're going to block everything coming from China and Russia that wants to come through our firewall. Destination is basically my computer. Okay, so sometimes if you have one IP address, then you can select that one IP address. In my case, I have multiple IP addresses, so I'm going to select all, because I don't want them coming through any of my IP addresses, because you may have a server, for example, with two IP addresses, one where you're running a website in China and you need the Chinese to come in, or and one where in America you have an American website where you only want Americans to come in. So you may have that type of setup, or a million different types of setups. There's a plethora of types of setups that you can actually do. Depending on what you have, you may want to block them from one IP and allow them through another IP. In my case, I don't do any business in China or Russia, so I'm going to go ahead and block them from all. Okay, that's what that means. So we're going to block them from all, and then schedule wise, we're going to select always, because we want this to be running always. Now, if you want to create a schedule, so for example, you see here it says 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. That's the schedule I created. You can actually create a schedule. I'm just going to go out of there for a second. You can actually create a schedule by clicking on schedules right here on the left under policy and objects, and you can actually click on create new, for example, and you can say, okay, block. This is just the name. The name doesn't mean anything. You can call it anything you want. So let's say I want to block everybody from accessing my server, let's say from 8 p.m. to, let's say, 8 a.m. the next morning. Okay, so by clicking on this, by turning off all day, you can actually select the hour, like how many hours and minutes of the day, and what times you want it to actually run. So you can actually do this and then click OK, and then that schedule will be created, and then when you create the policy, it will be on the drop down list of that policy. But in this case, I don't want to do that. I was just showing you that so that in case you're wondering why that was coming up under schedule. Okay, why I had this here. It's just because this is a schedule I created once. Okay, for some other reason. So again, I'm going to go ahead and start over here. This part, I'm going to go ahead and call this block countries. I am going to go ahead and select my incoming interface, as well as my as well as my outgoing interface, I am going to select China. And again, you can actually do the search right here like that and select it there. You can actually also type in Russia, select it there. So now I've selected both China and Russia. Okay. Now, destination wise, again, I am going to select all because I don't want them coming through any of the IP addresses that belong to my server. Schedule, I'm going to select always. Then for service, this is interesting. It depends on where, what kind of service you want to block them from. So for example, if you want to block them from SMTP, you can do that here. If you want to block them from accessing your websites through HTTPS or HTTP, you can do that here. You can also block them from, for example, everything from MySQL to RDP. Okay, but in my case, I'm going to go ahead and block them from all because I don't need Russia or China having access to my server for any reason whatsoever. So we're going to select all, and we are going to click on deny. Okay, so now once you click on deny, you're going to click OK. So now you've created the policy. That's it, and that means that your policy exists, and you can basically you'll be blocking these two countries. But there's one more issue here, okay, which I'm going to teach you about right now. A lot of people may not know this, but the way FortiGate works, and this happens to a lot of people that create actual policies, and then they notice that the policy is not working for whatever reason, so they may block, all the countries in the world except America, or maybe America and Canada, and they ask themselves, but wait a minute, I see Russian IP addresses and Chinese IP addresses still having access to my server. I see visitors still were able to visit and were able to come in. What's going on? That's because the way FortiGate works is it's based on a hierarchy. Okay, so as you can see, this block countries is on row number 3. So I have like 3 rows here, and the ID of it is number 4. So what you want to do is you want to actually drag this to the number 1 spot. Okay, so the top spot, I should say. So number 4 is now the top spot. So the way it works now is that when traffic comes into the FortiGate, the first thing that it's going to look for is what country are they from? Are they from Russia or are they from China? If they see that they're from Russia or China, they're going to basically kick them out. They're not going to allow them access. Then it's going to go to policy number 2, then policy number 3. Now, if I selected this policy, for example, as my number 1 policy, okay, ID number 3, if I selected that one as my number 1 policy, what would happen is this one, if you see, it says accept all. So it says accept all traffic sources from anywhere, right? All the sources from anywhere, and the action is accept, and it says services all. So it's allowing anyone under the sun to come into my server and visit it and do whatever they want because this is actually open. Okay, so so after that, as you can see, block countries is number 2. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to let Russia and China in, and it's going to basically ignore the new policy that we created for countries, okay, to block countries. So what you want to do is, again, you want to sorry about that, I just clicked into it. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to actually select the block countries, and you want to move it up in the hierarchy so that's the number 1 thing. As you can see on the bottom right, when I move anything, it tells me that changes have been saved. Okay, so in this case, I am going to move the block countries on top, and again, you see changes have been saved. This automatically changes the settings, and block countries is now the number 1 priority, and anything coming from China and Russia is going to be automatically blocked. Now, this is one way to do it. Okay, another way to do it is to actually create a group in the addresses. So once you have, for example, all these countries in here, or all the countries that you want in here, okay? Because you don't have to have all the countries in the world in there. I like doing it that way, but you don't have to. What you do is you go into addresses, and then you click on create new, but this time instead of address, you're going to create a new address group. Now you're going to call this countries to block. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give it that as a name, and here I am going to select the members of this group. The members of this group are China and Russia. So I'm going to go ahead and select China and Russia. And again, you can select all the countries in the world, okay? You're not limited to just the 2 countries that I just created for you guys. It's any country in the world. Just for my example, I'm using China and Russia just to be consistent, okay? So we're going to create this new policy. The group name is countries to block, and the 2 members are China and Russia, okay? So now that I've created that new policy, you're going to see it. If you scroll all the way down after all these countries that I have added manually, you're going to see that address group right here, countries to block. It's an address group, and you're going to see that it includes China and Russia. Okay. Now we are going to now create a new policy with that address block. Okay. So the way you're going to do it is you're going to again go to IPv4 Policy. You're going to click on Create Policy, and you're going to now give it a name. So you're going to give it the same name, countries to block. Okay, countries to block, and then you're going to do incoming interface, and I'll go in interface. Then you're going to select the source. Now here, before what we did was we selected China right here. I'm sorry, China, and we selected Russia. Okay, so those 2 countries were selected before, but now we're not going to do that. We are actually going to select countries to block. So you can type in countries to block, or I could have just left that open and selected it from there. I just wanted you to see that if I type in countries to block, that it will show up. Okay, so in this case, I don't need China or Russia here because the countries to block contains China and Russia within that group. Okay, countries to block is a group, and 2 members are China and Russia, and therefore by selecting countries to block, we're selecting China and Russia automatically. Okay, now destination, again, I'm going to select all because we're going to block them from all the IP addresses that are within our system. And service, again, we are going to select all because I do not do business with Russia or China and don't need them in my system whatsoever. And we are going to click on deny because, again, we're going to deny this countries block. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create that. Now, once this has been created, okay, you're going to see that it's been created here. Okay, so it's always at the bottom, so it's country number 5. The reason there's not a number 1, you'll notice that there's no ID 1. The reason there's no ID 1 is because that was a policy that I created and deleted. So when you create one and delete one, then it uses up that one ID number. So that's the only reason why you won't see a 1 here, just in case you're wondering. Okay, so we don't need this block countries because we're going to use this new countries block that we just created. So we're going to go ahead and delete that by right-clicking and selecting delete. And here for countries block, we are going to move this up to the top spot. Okay, so as you can see at the bottom, it says your changes have been saved. Now that country block is denying all traffic coming from these 2 countries, China and Russia. Now, let's say we want to go back to addresses and we want to add more countries to that list. Now, what you can do is type in countries, because that's my address group actually contains the word countries to block. So if I type in countries there, then it'll come up. If I right click on that, or I can right click, I was not right click, I'm sorry. I can click on it, double click on it, and then it'll show me this where I can go ahead and add countries. Another way to do it is, let's go back to addresses, okay, and let's go to type in countries again, is just click on the countries themselves. So if you click on the countries, also you'll come into this where you can edit the countries, okay? Anyway, so you're going to the countries to block, you're going to select the members in order for this right panel to open up. And now you can select all the countries you want in the world, okay? All the countries you want that you want to block. So let's go ahead and select those. Let's go ahead and save it. And now all those, we're going to go to IPv4, where you're going to see that the country block is still in place. Everything's the same. But if you click on the actual countries block source, the name of the actual group, you're going to see that all the new countries I just added have been added as members. So now you have Brazil, you have Bulgaria, Cambodia, Canada. You can add all the countries in the world or delete all the countries in the world in or out of this address group. It makes it a lot easier to actually create the group and to delete it, to add or remove that way. It's yeah, so this is how you do it. This is how you basically block countries from your using FortiGate 60D. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to more videos. If you have any questions, please feel free to write it in the comments. I'll be happy to help you. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.